now. They're working towards us. They're working. Step back, get back, get back, get back. Your head, he's head. Step back. Step back, I got it. Whoa, watch it, guys. We got gas here. All right, back up. All right, they are now moving toward us. There was...
Come on, they're shooting at us.
Okay, they're shooting, guys.
Let's go.
Put your helmets on.
Ah! Jesus Christ! WCCO. That's a WCCO car. Okay. Get on, under arrest. Put it down. Demand it for hands on your back. Okay. I'm not.
Let's move on to other news. And the housing construction industry is set for a boost, with the federal government putting the finishing touches on a new stimulus package. Some economists predict residential construction could see falls of 50%. For more, I'm joined by the Deputy Chief Executive of Master Builders Queensland, Paul Bidwell. Paul Bidwell, thanks for your time tonight. What do you want to see out of this federal government stimulus package for the construction sector?
We've been pushing on a number of fronts. The first is a $40,000 grant for all new homes that's built or bought. And that's not just for first home buyers, that is for all new homes. In addition to that, we are looking for a renovation package. So there's a number of things that state and federal governments could do. And in fact, the Queensland government 2 weeks ago, in conjunction with the federal government, announced a $21 million package that will, in essence, cyclone-proof or enable homeowners to cyclone-proof their homes up and down the Queensland coast.
Yeah, that's one of the things the government is considering, isn't it? Having social or an environmental dividend to any renovations that they subsidise.
Yes, and that's very important. If you look at what the Northern Territory government has done, it's a voucher that allows any sort of renovation. Well, we've taken the view that there needs to be some long-term benefit. So whether it's cyclone-proofing homes, bushfire, increasing resilience to bushfires would be another option, as well as improving energy efficiency, and lastly, accessible housing. So, and that's not about disabled access, but improving access to homes. So over time, people can age where they live. So it's about wider doorways, wider halls, and hobless showers. So there's a number of elements that could be retrofitted to houses that will create a benefit for the community in the longer term.
What's happened to the industry since March there in Queensland?
Well, at the end of the start of the year, we had about 252,000 workers in the Queensland industry. And between mid-March and the end of April, so the first couple of days of May, there were 5%. So we shared almost 13,000 jobs. And when you look at the housing numbers, you can see why. So we had less than 30,000 approvals towards the end of March, and we expect that that's going to drop by as much as 45% over the next 12 months or 18 months. So there's a cliff about to be hit in September, October, unless governments introduce stimulus measures.
Yeah, so how quickly does that stimulus need to be introduced in your view?
We want hammers swinging well before the end of the year. So the builders, big and small, across the state have got contracts in place now, so whether they're renovators or commercial builders or residential builders, but across the board we expect that to run out in August, September. So October, November, well before Christmas, we'd hope that whatever measures the government's going to introduce are on the ground. And as I say, Queensland 2 weeks ago announced three packages that will provide, on the basis that they are rolled out, will make a difference, but there's more needed.
How important that this package from the federal government is very considered given the comparison to the pink bats disaster?
Well, that's an example of what we don't want, although energy efficiency is something that could well be funded by state and federal governments to improve long-term outcomes. But it's making sure that the licensed builders across the country are managing the works, are doing the work, and that's builders and tradesmen, or tradespeople, I should say. And so they need to take their time in pulling it together, but we are urging them to do it as quickly as possible.
Paul Bidwell, I wanted to ask you about the potential for the coronavirus pandemic to have taken the steam out of the capital city housing markets because of the lack of immigration to Australia over the course of this year, and that sometimes houses in, say, Sydney and Melbourne, that they're overvalued. Do you anticipate that a policy like this would keep house prices high?
Well, look, it really remains to be seen. The listings we know on, so that's established houses, have dropped significantly. I'm not aware that the house prices have dropped. So we would say that increasing demand for new construction ought not have any significant impact on prices. But that's one of those things that we just have to wait and see how it plays out. But we believe it's very important to create jobs for the state and federal governments to invest in, whether it's new residential work, renovations, as well as the commercial sector as well.
Paul Bidwell, thanks so much for your time.
My pleasure.
Australia has seen no major increase in coronavirus cases after the first stage of restrictions were eased. It will be some time before we see if much bigger steps taken today by many states on the cusp of cold weather will spark a new wave. Here's Casey Briggs with a look at Australia's curve.
8 new cases today, that's all we've seen so far, and most of those, all 3 in New South Wales, this one in the west and one of Victoria's 4, are the least worrying kind of coronavirus case. They're in overseas arrivals who have been in hotel quarantine since they entered the country. This chart shows you all of Australia's new infections going back 4 weeks. About a fifth of these are in New South Wales, but the majority, almost 2/3 of them, are in Victoria. That state is now the single biggest contributor to Australia's case curve. We now have just 20 people in hospital with COVID-19 in Australia, and the better news is only one of those is in a serious enough condition to be on a ventilator. Now, many states have taken big steps today to ease off on restrictions, and winter is here. That's a climate that the virus probably prefers. So there's every chance we'll continue to see new outbreaks crop up. Israel's a country that Australia's been taking some notes on lifting restrictions. It too's had a very flat curve for weeks and weeks and weeks, but they have just had one little spike, 115 new cases, most of those linked to a school in Jerusalem, proving that vigilance will be necessary for a long time to come.
It's been a long 3 months, but today, with restrictions finally lifted, many Canberrans headed for the south coast, even if it was only for a day trip. The economy in towns like Batemans Bay has taken a battering from bushfires and then COVID-19. But things are looking up, although it's a long way from business as usual. Elizabeth Byrne reports.
Finally open for business after 3 long months.
I've been waiting to see the phoenix and the other animals again.
I was nervous, excited and then relieved. So it's so great to have that energy back again. But yeah, this morning the butterflies were there for sure.
With Canberrans finally allowed to travel for fun, there were some who just couldn't wait.
This is the first trip and the girls want to build a sandcastle at the beach today.
For others, it was a family reunion.
I was just overjoyed to see them.
Yes.
Lots of hugs, wasn't there, boys? And I couldn't believe how much they've grown.
Many businesses thought the fires were the disaster of the year and were gearing up to overcome that. Remember this.
Canberra, come back. Down the Brown or the Clyde.
The Daggy video was meant to entice Canberrans back to the coast, but then COVID-19 struck.
On the 23rd of March, everything was pulled from under us.
But with the influx from Canberra this weekend, things are picking up.
I think it's going to be a different winter this year, so maybe we may have more travels in the off-season rather than in the peak season.
This is what Canberra's been hankering for. All around here you can see the devastation of the bushfires. And after COVID-19 there's no business as usual. But there is an air of optimism as travel restrictions are lifted.
It looks like so far about 2/3 of our visitors today are all from Canberra, which is just wonderful.
And those video makers are planning a new release.
There is something here for everyone to do.
There's been a few ideas, but at the moment we're focusing on reopening our business here so that Canberra can come back.
Today was only a taste. Next weekend, the throngs are expected. Elizabeth Byrne, ABC News, Batemans Bay.
3 media outlets have lost an appeal over a key ruling holding them responsible for alleged defamation on Facebook. Dylan Voller, a former detainee of a Northern Territory Youth Detention Centre, is suing 9 News, Nationwide News and Sky News over Facebook comments made by members of the public in response to articles posted on their pages. Last year, a New South Wales Supreme Court judge ruled the media companies are the publishers of the material and are therefore liable. The media companies lodged an appeal which has today been dismissed by the New South Wales Court of Appeal. The court says the original material created on the Facebook pages was intended to have users post comments. Victorian barrister Dr Matt Collins QC says it's a victory for Dylan Voller, but only the beginning of what's shaping up to be a long defamation case.
The ruling today is actually, believe it or not, just a preliminary ruling in the matter, even though it's gone all the way up to the New South Wales Court of Appeal. It'll now go back down to the Supreme Court, a single judge of the Supreme Court, and the media organisations will have the opportunity to mount their defences. And one of the defences that they will mount is that they should not be liable until such time as they had a reasonable opportunity to remove the offending comments from their Facebook profiles. The Court of Appeal has pointedly left that question unanswered for the time being, so that remains to be seen. It's about a 40-page judgment by 3 very experienced members of the New South Wales Court of Appeal, and it's a very dense judgment in that it goes through a lot of case law from Australia and elsewhere. If it goes to the High Court will look at these questions, but if there's no appeal, it'll then go back to a judge of the Supreme Court. The media organisations will be asked to put on their defences. I'd imagine one of the defences will be that they couldn't be liable until they had a reasonable opportunity to remove the comments, but they may be looking at other defences that would be available to anyone in a defamation action. Any which way, this was sort of a big win for Dylan Voller, but it is only round 1 in what looks like a pretty big and protracted defamation fight. There's no doubt in my mind that there would have been a very different result if these cases had been litigated in the United States or in the UK. In Australia, our defamation laws date from 2005, and that was really a time when the internet was very much in its infancy. Actually, at the end of 2005, Facebook had only 1 million users worldwide. Today, it's got something like 500 million users daily. So the world has moved on a long way since our defamation laws were formulated in 2005, and developments which have occurred in other countries are yet to take hold here.
The master of a container ship charged over a cargo spill has had his case mentioned in a Brisbane court. The APL England was on